Hello students, today let us just try to understand the concept of maturity and maturity indices in fruits. We know that we have to make a decision of harvesting the fruits or the horticultural commodities at a particular stage. So what are the criteria for that? So let's just try and understand. So should we go? Okay. So here it is, the first slide, which asks that is mature and ripe same? So what do you think? Mature and ripe? So many of you would say that okay, first comes the maturity and then it ripes, but then there are so many other things which are to be linked to it in order to understand this concept of maturity and ripening. So the definition says that maturity will be a stage of fruit growth which is preceding ripening, means that which comes before ripening. But then the question is that is it true in all the cases? Is it true for all the commodities? Is it true for all the purposes when we go for a harvesting of a particular commodity? So here, if you just elaborate this definition, so it will say that it is the stage at which the commodity has attained the sufficient physiological development such that after harvesting at that stage and adequate handling, post-harvest handling, maybe the ripening is also required in some cases, its quality would be above the minimum acceptable to the ultimate consumer. So this talks about consumer. This is number one. It also talks about the physiological development, means the changes in the composition, the sugars, the organic acids, the flavoring compounds, the coloring pigments and vitamins, and so many other things, and the textural changes also, which all contributes to the physiological development. So when it has attained all those things to a sufficient level so that it makes it acceptable, minimum acceptable to the consumer, so that makes it mature. But then we must understand that it's not always that it will be the same stage. So why it will not be the same stage? So for that we have to go through these definitions, that one is the physiological maturity and another one is the horticultural maturity. So let's just focus on the physiological maturity first. Now physiological maturity stage says that it is a stage at which a plant or a plant part, means whatever we are going to harvest, so that is a plant part. So plant or a plant part which continues the ontogeny even if detached, means even if it is detached from the parent plant, so the ontogeny will continue. Now what is ontogeny? Ontogeny is the complete developmental history of an organism or an egg or spore or bud to the adult individual. It means that if we harvest a seed, if we harvest a fruit in which the seeds, they have attained sufficient maturity, and if I go for sowing of those seeds, so it can give me a whole plant. So that is what it speaks about, the ontogeny. And on the contrary, if the seeds are immature, so even though you go for sowing, you are not going to get a plant. It means that the fruit containing immature seeds will be physiologically immature, but that containing the mature seeds will be physiologically mature. It means that it can give you another plant. So that is what is the physiological maturity. So it talks about physiological, the state of the plant or the plant part which you are harvesting, but it does not talk about consumer. Now on the contrary, we have another definition, which is the horticultural maturity. What horticultural maturity has to say is, it is the stage at which the plant or a plant part, it will possess all the prerequisites. All the prerequisite means whatever is required, maybe the flavoring compound, the sugar, the TSS acid blend, the color changes, and so many other things, the textural changes. So the stage at which a plant or a plant part, it possesses all the prerequisites for utilization by the ultimate consumer for a particular purpose. Now what it says number one, that it has to be utilized by a consumer. But the another thing which is attached to it, that for a particular purpose. It means that the same consumer can consume the fruit or the commodity which is being harvested for different purposes. And when the purposes they are different, maybe the consumer is same, the purposes they are different, so the maturity stage will become different. Say for example, now if you just say I have a mango and I'm going to use it for preparation of a beverage or extraction of pulp. So what stage I will select? Definitely it should be ripe. It should be ripe, the color pigments they should be there, the TSS should be good, and so many other things. But the same mango, if I have to utilize for pickling, what stage will you select? Will it be the same stage? No. Both of them, they will be different stages. It means that the consumer is same, purpose is different, so the horticultural maturity changes. It does not have to do anything with the physiological stage. Whether it completes ontogeny or not, whether it is in a position to produce the whole individual or not, doesn't matter whatsoever. It doesn't matter. But what matters is that how the consumer is going to consume, how he is going to use it for a particular purpose. Does the commodity possess all those things in it? So that is what talks about horticultural maturity. Physiological maturity talks about physiology. Horticultural maturity talks about the requirements, fulfilling the requirements of a consumer. Now this is one instance when the consumer is same, but then there are different instances or the purpose will be different. Say for example, you are harvesting tomato. Now tomato from a kitchen garden will be harvested at ripe red stage. All the color has developed, then only I'll be harvesting. But on the contrary, if I have to just transport it to a distance, maybe 1000 kilometers, so what stage I will prefer, and that through a truck or a train maybe. So maybe it is 2000 kilometers from here to Bangalore you have to send. So what you'll do, you will be harvesting it sufficiently prior to the stage at which you will harvest it for the kitchen purpose. And so that is how it makes a difference in case of tomato. For long distance it will be like the turning stage or the pink stage, but for the kitchen garden it will be all ripe red. So that is how, now in this particular case the consumers they are different, so the purpose is also different. In the previous example of mango, so the consumer was same but the purpose was different. So what is important is that how the consumer is going to consume, so that will decide the horticultural maturity. Fine. Okay, now let's move ahead. So here it is the example. Here if you see, these are the stages. Now if I ask you to identify that where this will be physiologically mature, is it physiologically mature here? No. Here? Maybe no. Somewhere here? I don't know, I'm not sure. But here? Quite sure. So because it is deep red color, so the seed has now matured, and tomato is a crop which is propagated through seed. So that is how it is physiologically mature. But what about horticultural maturity in the same example? So here if you see that I can find a horticultural maturity here if it has to be transported to 500 kilometers. Slightly here also, the turning stage, if it has to be transported to sufficiently long distances. But then if it has to be utilized in a kitchen garden, so this will be the horticultural maturity stage. So it can be this one or this one or this one or this one, depending upon the requirements of the consumer. So that is how it differs. But when we talk about the physiological maturity in the same example here, so all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so these are all the immature one physiologically. This will be quite mature and it can continue the ontogeny. Now another example of banana. The same thing, same question I'll ask here. So depending upon the type of purpose, if this is the stage, and what I say that if I have to consume it directly, so I would prefer to harvest it at this stage. But commercially, banana is a climatic fruit and it is not harvested, so it is ripened later on. So definitely it will be harvested somewhere here. So when it has to be transported to long distances, so it is somewhere here. But if it has to be consumed directly, so it will be somewhere here, and never this, because this is going into the overripe stage, so it's not desirable. But what about physiological maturity here? Is this in a position to continue ontogeny? Is this in a position to continue ontogeny? What will be there in this which is in a position to continue ontogeny? I don't think that banana is propagated through seeds. So it is difficult to define the physiological maturity stage here. So it's only the horticultural maturity which will be the applicable definition in the case of banana. So in many of the cases, because this is not propagated through fruit, and the seeds in the fruit, so they are not sufficient, they are not mature enough to give us a plant. So here it will be difficult, even if you harvest it at this stage, or this stage, or this stage, or whatever stage you harvest, and if you just put it into the soil, I don't think you are going to get a plant. So in that case, I'll say that it's difficult to say that it is physiologically mature or not, but I'll definitely say that here the applicable definition will be the horticultural maturity. Now moving to the next one, what about these one? This one is the cucumber. So what stage it is? Now cucumber is a vegetable which is harvested always at its horticultural maturity. Now you would have seen, those who know the cucumber cultivation, if you leave the fruits on the vine itself for sufficiently long duration of time, it gets matured and it becomes brown in color. The surface will become brown in color, and it will become juicy, and it will also become acidic because some kind of physiological changes that takes place inside the cucumber fruit. So that will be the physiologically mature stage in case of cucumber. But normally we don't keep the cucumbers till that stage. We just go for harvesting at the stage when it is tender. Even we don't like to have seeds inside, and if there are seeds, they should be quite tender and soft and immature. So means that here in cucumber, this is the horticultural maturity, not the physiological maturity. Same is in case of asparagus. These are the asparagus spear. Same is in case of the carrot. Even though you keep the carrots for a long period of time, you are not going to get. But the point is that the shoots may come, new shoots will come, and then only it will be. So the definition of physiological maturity is not applicable here when we talk about the post-harvest handling. So only the definition of the horticultural maturity is there. In these case, this looks like horticulturally mature as well as the physiologically mature. This seems to be the peach, and this is the plum. So both of them, they look quite good, and the seed is also mature, I think, and it is physiologically mature as well as horticulturally mature. But when we talk about the post-harvest handling, we talk about the horticultural maturity, not the physiological maturity. It is there for some different purpose, in order to check the viability of the seeds and so many other things. But then that is beyond the scope of this particular course and content. Okay, now let's move further. So then we talk about maturity indices. Now what are maturity indices? Now it's very important to understand that indices means there are so many indices, and we have to talk about so many indices together. Similarly, these are when we talk about the definition, so these are the maturity indices, or in singular will be maturity index. So these are the factors that help to make a decision on harvesting, whether I should go for a harvest or not, when to harvest. So that decision is made based upon the factors, and those factors, they are known as the maturity indices. So normally there are so many factors which are taken into consideration, not a single factor. We don't depend upon a single factor. So that is how it is the maturity indices. Now we can categorize these indices actually in different classes. So there are 4 different classes. The first one talks about the computational methods. So if you have an orchard, or if you have some previous experience of cultivation of a particular crop in your field, so then based upon those experiences of the yesteryears, so you can get a calendar date. Okay, last year my apples ripened on 15th of June. So I should expect ripening of apples around 15th of June this year also. So that is how it's there. So that is how we make a reference of the calendar date. Then days from full bloom to harvest. Now many times the flowering is little bit delayed because of maybe the chilling requirement, maybe rains or something. But then the development of fruit will take sufficient, this almost same duration all the time. So that is how, if we talk about the days which it takes from the full bloom. Full bloom means it is a stage when more than 75% of the flowers they have opened. Full bloom we cannot just measure, but visual observation of the tree, and if we say that okay, now 75, more than 75% of the flowers they are there and they have opened, so then we talk about this is very easy to do in case of the temperate fruits where we don't have leaves, because they are deciduous, so leaves they fall in winters. So we just get the flowers first, so and they are quite visible, and you can easily observe that okay, 75% of it has bloom now. So that will be the day of full bloom, and to harvest it may take 100 days, it may take 120 days, it may take 145 days or 170 days depending upon the type of crop. So apple and pear are the examples, or maybe some other temperate fruits where we do this kind of calculation. So that is what is the computational methods. Now the maturity stage will also depend upon the mean heat units. So the day and night temperatures, what is the maximum temperature received during the day, what is the minimum temperature received during the day, by making a calculation sort of thing, we can calculate the mean heat units accumulated. So when these many units they are accommodated, so we can just have an idea, okay, after accumulation of these many heat units, my crop will be ready for harvest. So that is how by accumulation of mean heat units we can use this also as one of the maturity indices. It's used in pea, apple, sweet corn and so many other crops. Now the physical methods. So these are the most common type of the methods which are used to determine the maturity. So these are also again one of the maturity indices, all the physical methods. So many examples here on the screen. You can just see that fruit retention strength. If I cannot pluck the fruit easily or it does not drop on its own, so what you say that it's still not mature. It has to be kept for some longer duration of time. Similarly, in some crops, say for example, on the surface, in case of melons, so there is a netting. So the netting it becomes distinct. So that is how it's there. Cuticle formation in case of the grapes and tomato. Development of wax, you would have seen that the plum and apple and other crops, so they develop wax on the surface because that is a natural process, and the surface becomes like a whitish sort of, and so that is also one of the indices, means now it's ready for harvesting. So these are the things. And then these are applicable for some specific crops. Then there are some others, say for example size and weight. So based upon the previous year's experiences, we can just say now the size has become this much, so the fruit is ready for harvesting. Weight has become this much, so the fruit is ready for harvesting. This is how we can make an idea. Similarly, the color, the skin color is also there. So in many of the commodities which change color at maturity, say for example apple, say for example tomato, say for example, there are so many examples. So it's very easy to predict that now we should pluck the fruits, we should harvest the fruits because it's there. Similarly, in case of apple and pear and some other stone fruits, the flesh firmness is also one of the measures. So we measure with the help of a penetrometer, we can measure the firmness of the flesh. So after a particular because initially the fruit will be hard, but when it moves towards the maturity, it becomes softer and softer, and ripening it becomes soft. So when we attain a particular softness based upon the pressure, so we can just adjudge that now it's right stage for harvesting. So similarly, juice content in the citrus fruits, oil content in avocado, and so many other stages. So in case of the cruciferous crops, say for example cabbage and cauliflower, the firmness is very important. The solidity of the head in case of cabbage, the curd in case of cauliflower, so that's very important. Now then there are some other examples, say for example T stage in apple, angularity of fingers in banana, fullness of cheeks in mango. So these are the questions which are also very important from examination point of view. Many times these questions are asked in the entrance examinations. So the T stage in apple, the angularity of fingers in banana. So degreening of foliage. You would have seen in case of ginger the foliage, because ginger is an underground crop. So the underground crop, we cannot see the crop as such. We cannot see the rhizomes of ginger. We cannot see the garlic bulbs. We cannot see. So the onions we cannot see. So in that case, we have to see the nature. We have to see the color of the above ground foliage. So if it drops, it becomes yellow, it becomes weak, and it drops. So it means that now we should go for harvest. So that is how it's there, and we can talk about so many physical methods for the judging the maturity. Now here if you see the T stage in apple, so this is also asked, as I said that in many of the examinations it's asked. So the T stage in apple, how do you judge the T stage? Now here you see that now first of all I would tell that T stage is not the stage of harvesting. It's confusion, big confusion. You don't harvest the fruits at T stage. But then T stage is a stage from where you can just calculate that after these many days, so it's going to be ready for harvesting. Because initially it may take a little while for the development of fruit, but after attaining a T stage, so the if all the environmental conditions they are fine, so it goes nicely, and it takes almost the same period of time to become mature and to become ready to be harvested. So here how do you see the T stage? T stage is here if you see if I put a string or a rod through the axis of apple, here you see, so this is one straight line, and this vertical one where we get the diameter of the fruit. So this and this makes a T, means there is a 90-degree angle here at this particular point. There will be a 90-degree angle through the axis and at the where we record the diameter. So it has to be like this. But initially also it may be tilted. There you can see. And when the fruit becomes big because of the weight, also you can get the stalk. Because of the weight, it becomes bent on either side. But at a T stage, it is almost straight. So that is how you identify a T stage. Now here if you see, just T stage will be somewhere here. So it can be somewhere here. The T stage will be somewhere here when it is quite straight, and it's having a 90-degree angle with it. So it's a T state. Okay. Now let's move further. If I go to the next one, the angularity of fingers in a banana. If you talk about angularity, again, as I say, this is important for the examination point of view, but try to understand angularity is not the stage of harvesting, but it talks about till we have these angularities, distinct angles on the surface of the peel of banana fruits. These are visible, these angularities visible distinctly, so it's not ready to be harvested. But when these angles they tend to fuse into each other, like say for example here, it's difficult to find those distinct clear-cut angles. They have fused into each other, so then it is good for harvesting now. So that is how we can distinguish the angularity of fingers in case of banana. So these are some of the maturity indices, the physical one. Now going further, the chemical methods. If you talk about the chemical methods, so there are changes in the sugar content, there are changes in the acid and starch and astringency, so many things, the flavoring compounds, the vitamins, the minerals, so many things. So it takes place. But then we cannot adjust so many things together. TSS is one of the very simple methods. At the harvesting stage, the apple fruits or the plum fruits or other fruit will attain a particular TSS, and it also can be just doubled by making it a ratio of the TSS and acid. Doubled means we can have a double idea, means TSS to acid ratio. TSS with the advancement of what we say the stages of the maturity, the TSS should increase and the acid should decrease. Initially the fruit is going to be less in acid, but subsequently as it moves towards the ripening stage, acid will be broken down and it will convert into simple sugars. So here the TSS should increase. So that is how it's there. In case of pomegranate, citrus, papaya, melon, grapes, we can make a judgment of the TSS and acid ratio. Similarly, we can also make a judgment of the sugar and acid ratio. Now, in some of the fruits, starch is one of the very good examples. In apple, it is commercially used. We use the starch iodine test. So if it is ripe, so starch there, it means that the starch has been converted into sugars. So when it has been converted into sugars, it will not give color with iodine. But if it is still there, if it the sugars the starch has not been converted into sugar, it means that it's there, mature and not moving towards the ripening, so it will give blue color with iodine. So starch iodine test is also one of the common methods used in case of apple and pear to adjust the what we say, the ripening stage, the maturity stage, harvesting stage. Astringency and tannins, so persimmon, dates, walnuts, you would have seen that these are quite astringent, so that is also adjudged as a criteria for judging the maturity in case of these crops, the persimmon. There are some other methods which are used to a lesser extent to judge the maturity. So these are the respiration rate, ethylene evolution rate. So these are physiological methods, so they can be used in so many fruits. Apples and pears are the good examples. But then what is the key? What is the take home? Not take home is that whenever you are going to adjust the maturity, here we talk about the horticultural maturity, whenever we judge the horticultural maturity, we should not rely on a single factor, because we may be taking a decision which is not correct. So when there are more than one factor, we can take 3, 4, 5 factors: the color, the surface changes, the physical methods, and also judging the calendar date and the computational methods, and along with some of the chemical methods. If all of them say, even the flavoring and other things, you can just adjust. When all these things they say that now the fruit is ready to be harvested, so we can make a decision and we can confirm our decision. So that is what is the key here. Now going one step further, that the quality requirements for processing. Now when you harvest a fruit, we say that for processing the fruits, they should be ripe, or we don't talk about the stage at which the crop should be harvested for the purpose of processing, but it's very, very important. Now there are two reasons. One is that if we have a commercial large scale process line, in that case the fruit or the commodity will be handled mechanically through conveyor belts, through automatic graders, through automatic screens, and so many automatic machinery. So there it has to be harvested at a particular stage. Manually we can do, but when we talk about mechanized thing, so it's difficult. So that is one point, that we should always judge the quality when it is there for mechanized processing. As far as possible, there should be uniformity in the ripening, there should be uniformity in the size and shape and all those things, so that they can be peeled properly, they can be pulped properly. So that is how these are the quality requirements. Now going specifically for the quality, as I have given example earlier also, that the harvest stage of mango for the purpose of preparation of beverage will be different from that when it is being harvested for the purpose of pickles. At pickles it will be mature green, for beverages or for juice or pulp it should be firm ripe. So that's very, very important. That is how it is there. Similarly, guava for beverage and guava for jelly. I must tell that guava is a fruit which has to be converted into pulp in order to prepare a beverage out of it. And I tell you that you are not going to get pulp if the fruit is not ripe. It has to be ripe, it has to be soft, because you keep on boiling, so you are not going to get good yield. So in order to get economical pulp yield from guava, it has to be ripe. So that's very, very important when it is beverage. But on the contrary, when you go for a jelly making, in case of jelly making, when it is being made from fresh fruits, jelly is made when you have sufficient quantity of pectin, and The immature fruits, or the mature fruits, they will have higher quantities of pectin. So protopectin, which is water insoluble, when you heat it, so it gets converted into pectin, and that pectin will be extracted into the extractant medium, which is water. So you get a pectin extract, which is rich in pectin. So if it is there in case of jelly, so for jelly you don't need a ripe fruit, but you need a fruit which is firm and mature. So that is how it's there. Some of the fruits, they should be ripe, because you should also get a good flavor. So we have to take a mixture also, so mixture of fruits in order to get a flavor, in order to get the desired amounts of pectins also. So we have to make a decision. Now going into amla, here also the same thing, that if we want to go for a preserve or a jam or a sauce, so it should be medium sized fruits. The fibrousness should not be there. But whereas in case of pickles, if you talk about pickles, so it should be acidic and it may contain fibers also. So that is how the processing requirements will also vary. Now here you can go through all those things in case of papaya, in case of lychee. Okay, fine. Now we go to apple, and in case of apple, actually we have different kinds of varieties. The varieties like golden delicious, they are quite good in juice, and they are used for the purpose of extraction of juice. But then we also have some varieties which are not good in color. Surface color is not red or not good. They are the greenish kind of varieties, but they have very good content of acid and pectin. So these are very good for the preparation of jam and extraction of pulp for the preparation of jam. So that is how we should go for making a selection of the varieties as well as the stages of maturity. So if you harvest a little bit early, so it will be highly acidic and having higher pectin. So that is good selection for jam. But if you want to go for a juice, so then you should wait for a while and delay the harvesting till you get sufficient quantity of juice. So you have to delay accordingly. Now tomato, we have already discussed that in case of tomato to be transported to distance places, so it has to be different. But if it has to be processed for the purpose of making a juice or the pulp or a chutney, so here we should go for higher total soluble solids as well as higher recovery. So that is what is desirable. As far as the juice is concerned, so those varieties which are having smaller size of seed and higher the juice content, so they should be preferred. Coming to potato, in case of potato which are used for the purpose of chips or french fries, so one thing which is very important, you see that we cannot use a variety of potato which is sweet. So that sweetness is highly undesirable when you go for preparation of french fries or chips in case of potato. So we should go for a selection, selecting a variety which is having low quantities of sugar as well as which are high in dry matter, so that we get a good texture of the french fries. Similarly, in case of onion, so obviously the white varieties will be desirable. Just a minute, there is something wrong. Okay, fine. Similarly, in case of onion, so the white varieties will be desirable, because upon dehydration, the colored varieties, they may lose color, the pigmentation may go off, so the final product will not be of good characteristics, good quality. So that is how we should go for a white type of variety in case of onion. Pea, it's very important. Like the fruits, you see, the fruits, they normally increase sweetness as we go for ripening, but in case of pea, you see that the sweetness goes down as we go ahead in case of the maturity. As you proceed with the maturity, the sweetness will go off. So that is not desirable. When you go for selection of a pea varieties or the stage of harvesting for the purpose of freezing or for canning, so we must select those peas which are tender as well as sweet. So that's very important, and the shelling percentage should also be high, means higher yield. It's very important for making the process economical. In case of cauliflower, the compactness of the curd is the most important characteristic, as I have already told in previous slides. Now moving further, in case of carrot, it should be crisp, deep red in color. So okra should be bright green in color. Bitter gourd should also be green in color, low in moisture content. So that is how the pickling and dehydration varieties will be there. Chili should be deep red, low in moisture content, but it should be like pungent enough. The plums for beverages, obviously high pulp to stone ratio is desirable, so that is a varietal characteristic, but we should go for a selection of fruit which is ripe, because then only you will get a good blend of TSS and the lesser quantity of acidity. So that is how it is desirable in case of apple as well as in case of apricot. Now going to cucumber, if you go for gherkins, you see gherkins, these are cucumbers of very small size, maybe just the size of my finger. So they are harvested when it is very tender, very small size, very tender, deep green in color. So these are the characteristics which are there for a gherkin. It should be very tender. And for table purpose, as we see that it should not be fibrous, it should not be mature. So these are quite some of the characteristics in case of cucumber. But if you go for a juice extraction, obviously higher yield of juice and less fibrousness will be desirable. Grapes, in case of grapes also, the colored varieties are preferred, and the higher juice yield, higher sweetness is the desirable characteristic. So that's all how it makes a difference. So on and on, we must understand that when you go for the selection of a maturity stage, it is only horticultural maturity, and the maturity will, this horticultural maturity, as I have already discussed, that it will vary with the purpose of use of the consumer. So that's very important. Sometimes many people call this horticultural maturity as harvest maturity also. So these may go synonymous, but by and large it is for the consumer. So that is how it's there. Fine. So that's all for today, and we'll meet in next video very soon. Thank you very much. All the best.